Hello, everyone, and welcome for this HIE Peer Perspective series. My name is Jen. I am the social worker here at Hope for HIE. I want to introduce you to three parents that have so graciously volunteered their time to talk about autism and HIE. I just want to remind everybody that these are just their stories, their perspectives. None of this is medical information. As always, we always recommend that you take any information that you learn and talk through with your medical team, as they are your partner and would know best on what the best next steps are for your children. But with that said, I would love to welcome our panelists. So if you guys want to just take turns, introduce yourselves, and let us know a little bit about your child and their autism diagnosis.
I'm Crystal. My son is 12. His name is Colby. He received his autism diagnosis, a working diagnosis at 2.5, and then an official diagnosis a year later at 3.5. I didn't know a lot about autism and all that can be part of. So it was little things that started to draw my attention, like playing with very hard toys, only lining them up, only stacking Legos, pressing a button on a microwave 3 times, running away. When he heard it clear, he would run back and do the same thing. It was just very repetitive. So those were the little signs. And then we had someone who was not supposed to say, hey, I think you should go get this checked out. I appreciated it though, and I went and seen a developmental pediatrician for the assessments both times.
Thank you. Crystal E.
All right. I'm also Crystal, and my son's name is Ethan, and he is 17, and he was diagnosed at the end of middle school. So right around the age of 12-ish. And he had a lot of signs of autism earlier, but it was a little bit of a delayed diagnosis for a couple reasons. One of them being that he was already getting a lot of the supports that he would need, especially like with the speech and language and a lot of the behavioral things. His earliest signs were probably head banging at like 2 and 3 years old on hard surfaces, things like that. But we had it addressed because of the speech issues. And once that was taken care of, a lot of the behavioral things came through. He's doing really well now with those types of things. There's a lot of other situations that come out. And there was one other thing that the diagnosis that you had said, and now I don't remember what I was going to say about it. So I'll just let that go.
That's fine. If you think about it later, just put it in there. Kacie, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kacie. My son is Cash, and he just turned 4 this March. And so he has more of a mild HIE as far as outcomes. He was a little more moderate severe at birth, but recovered from all of that. The first thing we noticed was a speech delay. I think a lot of people notice that first, but because he's a boy, it's, you think he's a boy, he'll just, he'll catch up. It's common for boys to have speech delays. But I started noticing a lot more things. He also, because he's younger now, we have in the healthcare system the screenings during your wellness visits, which he, I guess you would say failed, did not pass those 2 in a row. So they did a more in-depth one, and he failed that one as well. He's also followed in the developmental clinic at my hospital. It's called the Dream Clinic. That's pretty much standard for NICU graduates now. So, and then because he had seizures in the beginning, he doesn't anymore, but because he did, he's specifically in the dream clinic followed by neurology. So every year he gets like a neuropsych eval, developmental eval. So they've been following him. So we were able to get his diagnosis at 2 during his developmental eval. We had already started speech therapy at 18 months. Um, and some of the things that I really noticed in the beginning, because he doesn't really have like your, I guess, when you think of autism, you think of, those stereotypical traits. Cash didn't really have those. But he did have a lot of different traits that were noticeable around the age between 1 and 2 that I noticed. He wasn't, he wouldn't like look at you when you would call his name. He did sometimes, not quite as often. The lining up cars specifically. He would lay on the ground and spin wheels and just watch it spin. He would pour, like in the bath, he would pour into cups back and forth. He wouldn't follow a point, hand leading. A lot of those things are some things that I noticed. So he was diagnosed level 2 initially. They said he was kind of borderline level 2, level 1, but they went with level 2. And then he had his developmental eval again at 3, and they re-diagnosed him to level 1 at that point. We had started ABA therapy pretty quickly. We got really lucky to get into that within like a month of his diagnosis. So I do think that really played a part in helping him. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kacie. Kacie, you actually started talking about a little bit about the diagnosis journey.
Yeah.
And I know with Cash being a little younger, you're in the beginning stages of this, but if you guys could talk a little bit about what the process kind of looked like. Was it confusing? I guess, how did you feel when you received the diagnosis? Was it kind of like a relief, like you had something to name what you saw going on? Was it scary? And then did it change any access to supports or services that you may or may not have been receiving already?
I can start just because I just was talking about it. So for me, like the process was pretty easy, and it really was helpful that we were already in a developmental clinic and all eyes were on him. So I know that's not the case for everyone. A lot of times there's up to a year wait time to get into neuropsych, or even longer. I know now sometimes the ABA clinics will get you diagnosed. Um, but for me, that process was pretty simple. I can't say for them, they can speak on that in a minute, but it was kind of like it's one of those things where you kind of like knew it was coming. You try to prepare yourself as much, but it's still like one of those things that I had a little bit of a hard time with it. Just because you worry, it's your child, you worry about their future, and you want them to not have a hard life or have any challenges. You want them to, you know, not struggle. So for me, I just worried about the future, and that was kind of the thing that I dealt with personally. It got easier as time went on, and getting him in therapy and talking with therapists. I had one-on-one meetings every week, and learning about therapy and about autism, and that really really helped me. And then for access, having the diagnosis opened up a lot of doors. I'm very in the beginning stages, so for me currently my son's not even in preschool yet. So for me it really just opened up ABA therapy at this point. He has already been in speech therapy, and we did occupational therapy briefly, but I think he could have had that regardless of the diagnosis just because of his HIE. But it did open up ABA therapy, which I personally had a really great experience with.
All right. I was I felt validated because HIE comes with its own bucket of things going on that you have to keep an eye out for. And my guy is my fourth. So I had 3 neurotypical children first, and having a fourth, any little thing that seemed different or off from my others, which I know we're not supposed to compare, but you end up doing it anyways. So I felt validated because I was like, oh, there was something there. And something I was grateful for is that he had multiple neuropsych evals, not even because I asked for them, but I was thankful for them happening after the fact because it was so much information. And they are long reports, but they're so helpful to see it written in black and white, like some information that you can just kind of take in at your own pace. And it definitely started to open doors because he also has a mild HIE. He was severe at birth. It ended up being mild, like an in-betweener. And because of that, developmental delay was no longer a bucket he fit in for school services. And at one point, even though we had the autism diagnosis, they ripped his IEP away in kindergarten. And I didn't know enough about the school system and our rights. And we went that way for a year. And then mid first grade, we moved school districts, just so happens, and they were super helpful in getting an IEP reestablished. Autism was enough because the first school said he wasn't severe enough. He was diagnosed level 1 both times for the working diagnosis and his official diagnosis. So it ended up being very helpful in that way. But yeah, I felt very validated because I was like, well, I don't know if it's just HIE. Is this just an HIE thing? You know, why is this happening? Because he had speech delay and he has strong food aversions and he struggled potty training, and the stimming started happening. But then somebody said, oh, well, stimming doesn't always equal autism. And I was like, oh. So it's validating to have the diagnosis so that you know you're looking down the right avenue.
Yeah. My son's diagnosis process was a little bit different. We also had numerous neuropsychs. He was followed up from NICU clinic as well. He was severe HIE, but he was head cooled and had the whole process from there, and all obviously starting from early intervention and all the things, all the evaluations. But being he's 17 at that time, there was a lot of, we don't know if this is related to the initial injury or if it was autism with some of the different things. So for a long time, it was, is it this or is it that? Things with the speech or things with the socialization or the eye contact or the atypical behaviors. And they didn't want to just put him in the category of having autism right away. We also obviously had other things going on behind the scenes that the doctors were very aware of as well, not to be too hasty in classifying, because it wouldn't change his services at the time. He was getting any service that he could possibly need to help him. The OT, the speech, the behavioral specialists were in there. Any service he could have, it wouldn't have changed the outcome for him. I think that is important to note, that I think regionally, what access to services you have makes a big difference. So sometimes that does change. Ethan didn't get his official diagnosis, like I said, until middle school, and he was diagnosed as level 2. When he gets all of his services, he presents as a level 1. So it makes a tremendous amount of difference because he's very functional with that. So for me, I didn't have any emotional connection for yet another diagnosis. I mean, he has like a dozen, you know, like by the time we get past HIE and then CP and then apraxia and then like everything else, for me, I'm like, okay, this is just one more bit of data for us to use. And when it happened, I was really indifferent about it. But over time, and I know later we'll probably talk about this, that diagnosis does mean something later, because which things are presenting at different times matters. And now that we are at the end of high school and some of these other things are coming out more versus like functionality, that diagnosis matters. And I'm really glad we do have it, because at the time I was very indifferent. I'm like, okay, it's just one more thing. What's one more? It's kind of how I felt. Like, you leave the NICU, you have like a whole, literally our NICU discharge sheet had all these things, not only like with the medical complications. I don't know how many people have medically complicated children leaving with the NICU who have HIE, but then when you have that part plus this, it makes it really difficult. And so, yeah, for me, I was indifferent, but now I'm so thankful we have it. It really is a blessing. And I don't know how many people would say that, but it does open up other doors as they age out of school for transition services, access to vocational services, access to, in New York, we have something called OPWDD. So, I mean, it has a lot of, there's a lot more services available. Like Crystal was saying, not just for school, but for adults. Adults with autism have 10 times the services of other diagnoses. So
I think too, I like how I feel and how things have changed too. Like at first I like really struggled, and then him being diagnosed level 2 and then getting re-diagnosed to level 1, um, some things have kind of changed in the sense that like now, um, I have some struggles with some people like minimizing the diagnosis and maybe not even or making comments like, that's honest, that's pretty age appropriate. It's probably just his age, on certain things that he would be doing. And I'm like, yes and no. I mean, for when I'm with my child 24/7, so I know things differently than, you do, and I see things on a daily basis. And I know that honestly, sometimes it makes me feel like crazy because he completely changed as like a kid. He was totally different when he was first diagnosed to when he was re-diagnosed level 1, as far as the things he did and how he acted, and he really came out of his shell. And but there's still things that I notice on a day-to-day basis as his mom, and things that people close to him would probably notice. But I think sometimes it is minimized, so then it's like now I almost have to kind of fight for that. And that's probably why some kids honestly don't get diagnosed until they're older, because oh, that's just, typical for their age. That's something that most kids do at, 3 or 4 years old, some things like that. But I mean, I see him, we're around a lot of other kids, and I see the differences. And I'm sure other people do too when you're in that sort of situation. It's kind of like some things like we struggle with now is like playing in big groups or birthday parties. Just he kind of gets a little maybe overwhelmed and wants to kind of do his own thing or play. He does really well with like more smaller group play dates, or one-on-one plays. He very well adapts to other children's energies. But like when he's in like a situation where there's a lot of different kids and he can't keep up, he needs my help to like maybe initiate play, or like if he really wants to play with someone, he'll say like, mom, like he wants me to help him go ask that person to play, or ask that child to play with him. And that's kind of like what we're struggling with currently, um right now. And I mean, what's odd is like potty training for us like only took a day. It's weird like how you literally I mean, we waited till like 3.5. So honestly, like we did do it a little later, but it only took a day. And that's the thing, like with autism, is like every story is different. Every like child has different struggles. So it's like, oh, well, he only potty trained in a day. Most autistic kids, they don't get potty trained for, they struggle with potty training, or, there's different things like, oh, he can look at you, and he's very outgoing, he's very social, things like that. And so I feel like a lot of times it gets minimized, or, he's very, the things that we struggle with on a daily basis get minimized, or people don't notice because of that.
Kacie, thank you for sharing, because, that does kind of get us into that next, just the daily life, the current challenges. I guess, Crystal, if you could kind of explore and share a little bit what your day-to-day life and the current challenges with your children being just a little bit older, I can only imagine that you are facing different aspects coming into maybe with the topics of puberty and hygiene behaviors, all of that kind of stuff. And what does that look like with these diagnoses?
Crystal, can I go ahead and jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
First, I want to piggyback off of what Kacie said, especially with people minimizing, before I answer your question, because you would think that would stop at some point. But even as a teenager, you will hear some of the same things, especially with other adults. And I'm going to say something which is really frowned upon, and it makes me just like, I will hear professionals say something, not from the medical side, but like from educational side. People say, oh, we have this new thing called digital autism. It's really word.
I think
It's
I've
not
heard
a
of
real
that.
diagnosis.
I think they heard like technology causing autism traits or something like that.
Yes, with people who actually don't have autism. And you will hear educational professionals and other people say, oh, well, and they'll try to minimize your child's autistic or special needs traits because other people now, with their cell phone world or lack of social skills because they're all like this all the time, other teenage populations and peers do lack some social skills at times, and it's becoming pervasive in society. So people are just making up these terms, and they then try to minimize actual autistic traits and struggles that individuals have, because as a society, some people are losing skills or not working on skills, or just it's not common. Maybe kids like to text their friend instead of talking to them face to face. Not that they're not capable or they have an issue, but they just choose not to do something. It's a very different perspective, and you will still get this issue, and it's really a common thing right now. And you have to learn how to advocate for your child, because sometimes that doesn't go away, and it's a really ugly thing to have happen. So unfortunately, while things do change as you get older, it doesn't always change for the better. And those are some different things that happen as they get older. They have access to different things. My son personally, he doesn't use any screens because of his eyes. He has to preserve his vision. He doesn't have CVI, but he has really bad lesions on his optic nerves, and he has like a melanocytoma, and he has really bad strabismus. He's had all the surgeries to correct them and cut it away. So anyway, he gets everything hard copy. He doesn't use screens. But they will say, oh, well, this is typical or common of teenagers. We see this a lot. And I'm like, my son doesn't do this. So this isn't a byproduct of. So anyway, I just wanted to, I know we're not supposed to have little sidebars. I just wanted to validate her in saying that, yes, this still happens. It happens a lot, even at an older age. And even with puberty, and as kids are trying to do these things, because this is a big thing. They want to fit in with their peers, right? They want to do everything their peers are doing, even if they don't understand sometimes. Like my son has a cell phone. He doesn't have any social media on it, but he wants to try to do all of these things. He has a cell phone. I call him on it. There are different things that come with still having the desire to do different things. In terms of some of the questions that you've asked about that, puberty looks different at different, I say there's like two phases of puberty. There's like the physical puberty, like where they have all the hormonal changes, at least in my experience. That'll happen and it didn't matter whether or not they were developmentally ready, like physically they were ready. And now it's like puberty 2.0. Now he's like developmentally kind of getting there. Like, oh, it's kind of clicking, even though he's leaving high school. And this is everything that everybody did when they were in middle school. So it's something that no one prepared me for. And having a child who has developmental disabilities and somebody, the autism thing brings its own unique element sometimes. Obviously, you have all these different clusters of what people can do. Not everybody has socialization issues. Not everybody has a hard time interacting with others or whatever. But like my son went to prom without a date, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all different things. But he's just now getting interested in, having someone as a companion. Those are all really interesting topics to start discussing, and taboo topics of sexuality and being safe and independence. And when you have somebody who maybe has learning needs as well, it brings a whole different element, and it's something that nobody ever talks about because you're so focused on getting your child to a certain point and being able to learn and being able to do all these things that we tend to think of our children, but there's a lot of adults with these issues, and they need to be here, and we need to protect them too because they're also incredibly vulnerable. So that's a very interesting part of puberty that's happening. You asked one other thing about challenges or things that have changed. As things have gotten older, I've found that he's moved less from being under the HIE and CP and all of his medical diagnoses and more into the autism. And I mean, it's still developmental needs, but those are becoming more relevant versus all of the other. Like once you get to a certain functional level, then all of the other things become more relevant than the individual things at a certain point. There's a big shift. Like it's not so much, can you do this in school? It's more of like, how are you going to do this in your life? And are you going to everything starts shifting to your independence as an adult. And, you start, he still gets PT every day, not every day, every week, for example, but we start interjecting different modalities and things to make him functional to do the things he wants. They start having more say, and when those hormones come in of like how they want to live their life and trying to be able to express them, once those thoughts start coming in and they start wanting to have some autonomy, if your child is functional enough to have that, which we didn't touch on at the beginning, I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. Those of us if our child with HIE gets to the point of being able to be diagnosed with autism, it means that they were able to be tested in enough domains to qualify for an autism diagnosis. And there's a lot of our peers who have children who have HIE who I don't want to say aren't so fortunate, but it's definitely a unique perspective to be in because our kids have been able to be tested by neuropsychs and other professionals and complete enough batteries to get that diagnosis. And that in and of itself, even though some days it's really difficult for us, is also a blessing that we're able to live this life. So when we're here, we have to remember too that they do have some of these functions, and when they start wanting that autonomy too, like at this age, I'm at the end here. I know that my son's the oldest of our children. It brings a lot of other challenges and trying to focus on that. So
there were two things I wanted to circle back, but I only remember one thing that Crystal was saying. It was at the end because that's all I could retain at that point. My brain will not keep up with me. But the autonomy, there was a day, you know, we take care of these guys, you know, you're so hands-on with them, right? And you end up helping them in ways that you didn't expect to for longer than you didn't expect to. And there was one day, I don't know, 2 years ago, and I went to like just touch his face to like help him, like, you know, clean him up. And he was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, you had something on your face. I'm just like trying to help you." And he was very not okay that I was up in his space and just helping myself to him, right? To help him.
mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh, okay, here's what I was trying to do. Would you like me to ask you in the future if I need to help you with something, or if I see something that I think I can help fix for you, would you like me to ask?" And he said yes. So then I had to put myself in the headspace to be sure I remembered that this is his world, this is his life. I don't need to be as involved maybe, and if I do need to be involved, he'd at least like you to ask permission. And I even had to share that with my mom because she was his second caretaker. So I just wanted to like say to like autonomy, it was like one of those like learning moments as an autistic parent, you know, a parent to an autistic child, that like, oh, I overstepped. I was trying to just take care of you. Like I always have taken care of you, but things have shifted, right? And then something else I wanted to circle back to too was the potty training thing, because that was a big struggle for us. He seemed ready at 3. He wasn't fully potty trained until a month before he turned 5, and then he also had 2 regressions after that. He was in diapers at times until he was 6.5. And bowel movements were the hardest part of that for us. Even having like a boy that could like stand to, you know, that didn't work for him. Noises in the bathrooms especially didn't work. He has to sit. He needs it quiet. He can't have auto flushers. I used to have to hide the sensors, auto hand dryers, you know. So anyways, the thing that I actually wanted to talk about in that realm is the sensory that goes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find anybody that knew about this, so I'm just putting these words out there because I needed to hear this. He always put his hand down his diaper when he pooped. And then he would hate the feeling of it, and he would smear it on my carpet or on my walls. And it happened for years.
Poopcasso.
And what's that?
Poopcasso.
Okay, yeah. So no one was talking about that when I was going through that struggle. So I'm just putting those words out there for someone else who's like, I can't believe this is happening. It happened to us, and it happened for years. And it was very like until he was potty trained, it just did not stop, no matter what we tried. So I feel you if you were going through that. I just wanted to say that. So I've got the middle schooler. He's in 7th grade. This year has been a huge change. Over last summer is when the hormones and puberty started to kick in physically. But and that was the thing you said, Crystal, was that there's like 2 phases, and I feel like we're in phase 1. We are just at the physical changes, helping with the hygiene routines. He's got something taped to his laundry basket to give him a visual schedule of, okay, make sure you get all your things done. I still sometimes verbally ask and check in. He has been asking for independence, sometimes at home, sometimes at school. Sometimes it's safe to allow him to, have that independence. And sometimes it's, I'm sorry, buddy, that's just not safe enough for you to do. And I have to do the explaining. And it's heartbreaking, but I need him to be safe. And there's a kind of silly story that happened today, actually. He got home and the kids across the street, we live on a quite busy street, even though it's like a slow speed, it's still very busy. And there's kids selling lemonade outside across the street. And they're hooting and hollering and yelling and all this stuff. And he has always wanted to have a lemonade stand.
Oh.
It hasn't worked out for us to actually try it. It just it's always bad timing when he decides that he wants to try. Anyway, so I thought that he wanted to go like help them. And instead, he was overloaded sensory wise because they were hooting and hollering and screaming. And he wanted to go across the street without, I had to stop him before he crossed the road. He wanted to go tell, I said, buddy, can I just ask you what you're trying to do? Like, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I need to go tell them there's a better way. They don't need to be loud like that. You're not going to get you're not going to get a lot of customers if you're loud and yelling and screaming at the cars. Like, just hold a sign out. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, well, everyone has their own way of doing things, but that was like him, like, and that's big, but that's also a win.
Yeah.
He was ready to go talk to kids that are strangers to him.
Yep.
Right? He doesn't socialize. He is 80% in his special ed classroom. Even though I have seen him be more successful in a gen ed, we did a move, it set him back. He's in a regression. We're working towards it. It's gotten a little bit better, but so he doesn't have circles of friends, and he's on the little bus, which is just a few kids. There's never, 20, 30 kids to choose from to sit with or chit chat with, like, and he just doesn't care. He doesn't care about the socialization. And then, showering for us is a thing. He finally started showering 2 years ago on his own, because until then it was baths. And then last year he started to shower completely independent except for his hair. And then he did do his hair for like 6 weeks until it wasn't cleanly enough because of the puberty and the greasiness. And mom had to re-enter and help out. So it's just, things can regress, and it doesn't mean that it won't ever come back either. That's something to mention, like the potty training, or like the hair washing, or this kid started making his own peanut butter sandwiches last year, and it's been a mess. It's a mess, but he's doing it and he's fed. And that was a huge win for like independence and stuff like that. And that just helps with his, fine motor skills and such. But we could obviously talk about a lot of this stuff for a very long time.
Yes. I think we could probably talk about each of the topics for like an hour apiece.
Definitely.
Right.
So, but I really do appreciate you guys even just touching on some of this stuff. And I know one piece, because schools, IEPs and supports are always a hot topic in the HIE community. So, Crystal F., I know you had touched on this a little bit in the beginning, but I didn't know, was there anything else anybody would like to share on, thoughts on when and if to share a diagnosis in it? Does it open doors, create challenges? What has been your experiences?
So just quickly, fight for what you think your kiddo needs. Speak up. Don't hold back. Ask the questions, even if you think they're silly. I had to try and figure it out the hard way. I looked for any advocacy groups around that would help me get through IEP, and I ended up with other children on either IEP or 504, so that helped too, but it's a struggle. So really fight for what you need or think you need, and sometimes they're not willing to just offer it. So you have to just be blatant and say, okay, I don't know, what about this? Because I didn't learn until 2 years ago that they would help with hygiene at school. I'm like, wait, that's a thing you'll help with? Why can't someone give us a checklist so we could just order what we'd like them to help us with, So don't be afraid to ask questions and fight for supports. And I've never found the autism diagnosis to be a blocking for us for supports. It's only opened doors.
I know that was kind of having like a younger child, my concern. Just also, I guess I graduated high school in 2014-ish. Yeah, 2014. I graduated early, but 2014. So I know that my biggest concern was, being picked out, treated differently, things like that, by students and teachers. And that was my concern about possibly like maybe not disclosing the diagnosis, especially if he's high functioning enough to where it isn't as noticeable. But I know like you both have said that it can only, open doors, or maybe even I think when I've talked to both of you in the past, you have said something along the lines of like, you know, disclose it or talk about it or use it when it can benefit you and your child, because I mean, obviously, like it has opened doors for therapy, which has been extremely beneficial for us. Um, I know we also I want to kind of circle back a little bit on the sensory stuff. That's like one of our biggest struggles is sensory issues, and it's been kind of like a roller coaster. He's gone through different sensory things and has come back to them, and I feel like different traits come and go and come back again, and things like that. And one thing I want to add about school, because I'm approaching 4K and I'm approaching kindergarten, and I've really thought about even homeschooling, um, because I'm worried that I don't necessarily maybe want to hold him back. I don't want people to like look at him differently. So I've always wanted to homeschool, but I don't know if I will always homeschool or if that's gonna fully work for our family. But I may homeschool until I feel he is caught up or ready to be amongst his peers. And that is, might be an option for other people, especially now that homeschool becomes so big and so accepted now. And there's so many different groups out there to join and other families to do it with. But yeah, ABA therapy for me personally, it was very play-based, very structured around our goals. Um, our biggest goals were like speech and sensory things like that, getting caught up developmentally, and we're still in ABA therapy. We did it in home. Now we do 2 days a week in clinic. And I mean, my son really enjoys it, and it's been really beneficial for us.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Okay, so about school, obviously I've done the whole gambit, and now we're also using our IEPs and neuropsychs to get accommodations for college. So if anyone's out there and they're like holding an infant, like I have no idea. I remember just crying at one age, like, having a kid with a breathing tube and all the scary stuff sitting in the NICU, like just having so much anxiety, just having no idea what quality of life my child would have. I wish there was somebody who could say, like, there's literally so much hope out there. It's not easy some days, but we're now like working on accommodations at universities and leveraging them against each other for different amounts of money. So sometimes you don't realize how much those little tiny pieces of paper matter for reasons beyond just getting services in your school. And until you've done it, sometimes it seems really naive, but that's like some of the hard-earned wisdom that people who unfortunately had to learn the hard way. Obviously, always get your kid whatever services they need. Super important, all the therapies, all the speeches, all of your, I know that this is going to be watched by people probably all around the world, all around every single state, because I mean, this is an organization that is all over. I can only speak to New York, so it's very different in different places. But here, we have all these programs throughout all these things, and they always come back, and every single place always requires an IEP from your school district as part of your qualifying going back to. So not like just for Medicaid, but like your HCBS waiver, your OPWDD qualifications, all of these things, they're always going to ask for your IEPs. They will ask for going back to when you were in kindergarten. Now, like my kid, for his supports, he can still only read at a first grade level, okay? But College Board, when he's taking the SAT, he got accommodations. They needed his IEP. And they needed what diagnoses he had on there and what accommodations and for what reasons. Did the autism one get him anything? No, but his different diagnoses on his IEP and his classification, he's listed as other health impaired. He's not listed as an autism diagnosis. He's not listed as, speech and language. He's not listed as, just because when you have multiple ones for different reasons, they use those for making up class makeups in special ed settings. That's how it's done in New York. I don't know how it's done in other parts of the world. As long as you have an IEP for your classification, or some kids might have a 504, whatever it is, getting all of these different kinds of things, that allows him to have access to a reader. It allows them to have all of these different things to level the playing field so that they can do different things. It allows them to get services for job coaches and people to help them, and special tutoring, and even colleges. It just opens up all of these different things that go beyond the school district. And it provides them all these other services some other day. But going back to, it's not just like, I need speech, I need this 12-1-1 placement or 15-1-1 placement. So if you're hesitant about, oh, you know what, my kid doesn't need PT or OT or ABA in school, like my son, he doesn't get any of those at school anymore just because I want him in the classroom. He gets those outside of that. And I don't know if we already transitioned to talk about therapies. Because my son was older, he never had ABA. He had PRT, which is a little bit different. And that's something, if we want to, I see you just put that up there.
I figure if you're going to go into it, go right ahead. I know, Kacie spoke a little bit about ABA and their experience and stuff. Yeah, I would love to hear about, some of the therapies that you may have tried, what you felt was personally helpful for your son. Now, like with HIE, every child is different. Different therapeutic approaches are probably going to impact your child differently. So if there was something that was a good fit, or maybe not so good, something you wish you would have known earlier when it comes to that therapy, I would love for any of your insight or wisdom.
We've done literally dozens of different kinds of therapies. So I will just say, because we will not be here for 3 hours. With my son, Ethan, when he was younger, we approached everything with his therapies, things that were more focused on neuroplasticity and based that way. He got everything under the sun from day one. I mean, literally we're in the NICU and he was getting feeding therapy day one. And PT and OT. And then when he came home with all of his, he had a million people. Like, we got every therapy all the time, like 5 days a week for everything. And then we added lots of creative things on there. He had aqua therapy, he had HIPAA therapy, he had hyperbaric chamber therapy. He's had everything, like things that really made a big difference from the HIE perspective. And then that went into the autism stuff. I think big overlaps with speech. He's apraxic, so he had prompt therapy, or like for speech therapy. And we also had a behavioral therapist in the home, even before he ever had the autism diagnoses. to help out. And occupational therapist still works with him. When he was younger, he would work with fine motor. I mean, he had that in school and at home, but now they work more on life skills and money management and going into the community and different things. We've had PSR. We have a respite provider who takes my son out into the community just to try to learn and map his community so he doesn't get lost. So it's like recreational things to try to build independence. So like that's how we use our respite, is not therapy. It's fun. Like they'll go ride bikes out into the community or something, but it's just a way for him to get out. So we've done lots of different individual things that we could talk about, but just our approach in general was anything that was neuroplasticity and learning and this kind of thing, we focused on that way. And it kind of paid dividends tenfold because we had very severe, I mean, like our son used to be wheelchair, he was breathing tube, he was machines. And now we're to the point where, I mean, like I said, he still only reads at a first grade level, but he's doing algebra too. So, I mean, it's a different part of the brain that's affected. Just different educational supports and things like that are very different than the medical complexities. And some of those things never go away. And as Crystal was saying, some things just, you regress, you come back, you regress, you come back. And I'll let other people speak now.
The only other thing I was going to say about the therapies is I feel like we all kind of start speech, OT, PT, like right out the gate, right, in the HIE community. One thing that was pushed away on me a lot was there was no need for PT and OT at school for many, many years. And I had to get that through the children's hospital, through their therapy services. So he was always missing school, leaving early, coming in late, whatever. He finally now in 7th grade, he's getting more PT and OT at school than he ever has, which is interesting. It's the only school in this town that has 2 floors, so he has to learn how to use the stairs more safely. He can do stairs, but he takes one step at a time. He takes them with his feet angled, and he holds the railing, and he goes down very slowly. So he's been doing stairs for many years now, but he can't pass in the halls yet and go down those stairs safely. Not with all the kids rushing around him, right? So now all of a sudden it's a safety concern. And now they're like, oh, we hear you, Mom. He does need, PT and OT for certain things. So I'm thankful for that. But my biggest struggle the past 2 years has been his self-esteem, especially once puberty started to hit. His self-esteem went down. He's ashamed that he sleeps with a plushie, right? He's going to be 13 this summer. He doesn't want people to know he's sleeping with a plushie because, again, we're not at phase 2.0 of the growing up parts. So he's doing the things that like maybe elementary kids are doing more. So his confidence was hit, his self-esteem was hit, and I was like, how can I help him? And I looked and I asked his developmental pediatrician, like, who as like maybe just like a talking therapy, right? Like who works with autistic children that are going to meet him at his level and be helpful to him in these manners. Wasn't able to find anything. And I'm not saying that this helped with the confidence and self-esteem, but it was an amazing therapy find that I found. ABAs all around here are cutting off at his age. I can't find any that are accepting anyone over 11, and he's going to be 13. And if you can find them, they have wait lists like 8 months long, and you're lucky if that even happens. And then by then I'm like, oh, I don't think we need it anymore. And then you jump off the list because you didn't think you needed it, but actually in 6 more months you will need it. So don't jump off those waiting lists. The thing I found was parent management training, and that seems very basic. It's just what it was called here. It is a pediatric neuropsych office, and it was therapy for the parent, because my kid's not going to listen. He's not going to take your skills and go implement them in his life. He needs someone to help him implement those things. So for us, one of the things, and this is just one, he was dropping F-bombs. And it was becoming problematic at home and at school. We've curbed it, and I just started working on that in January, by the way. So this ended up being amazing. It really worked out. It was listed as a psychology technician with a whole bunch of letters after her name, but I found them through a pediatric neuropsych, and it was just like parent training. So it is just one thing to throw out there because I had never ever heard of it before, right? And I've been doing this in this world for 13 years. So that was an interesting find, and I was so glad to have heard of some of the therapies that Crystal had found, whether they're your state specific or not. Like, I was very intrigued because sometimes I feel all we hear is speech, OT, PT. Sometimes we just need to know what else is out there. So don't stop searching because you will uncover something under a rock somewhere.
Crystal, I thank you for pointing that piece out, because, you know, there are so many things out there that, you know, we just think of, okay, we got to do this and then this and then this. There are so many alternative things. And sometimes when it comes to our children, it's, okay, what do I need? It's not about necessarily changing them, but what do I need? And what are the tools and the skills that we need as parents to help our children and have that relationship and to guide them into that and hope that they can have more independence and, you know, a safe future and all of that. So I really appreciate that perspective of that, you know, we can look at it from all different angles. I guess with that said, I would like to just thank you guys so much for joining me today. You guys are a wealth of knowledge based on your experiences. And like we said, every experience is going to be unique. I would like to just end this with, if there were any last thoughts that maybe came to you that you were like, I have to say this before I get off screen, or, you know, if there's something that you want other parents to know, or someone that's starting this journey that might be thinking, oh, is this the next journey we're going to be leading down? Is there something you would like them to know?
I can go quick. So one thing that I've really have been thinking about lately, or it's talking about lately, I should say, maybe if you know me, you probably know that I've been thinking about this a lot lately, is that I feel like HIE autism, in my opinion, I feel like it can, I wonder if it might be different or have a different um like reaction to therapies. I'm not sure. I really think that what happened with my son, starting ABA at 2 and you know, getting those early interventions and how much it really helped him and how much it changed a lot of the things he does. He like completely is a very different kid, but also he's only 4, and I don't know what things will look like when he's in school and as he gets older. You know, like you guys have said, things can go up and down, up and down. So I don't know, but I have a feeling that maybe it's different neurospasticity. You talked about that. I mean, maybe HIE autism is a little different. Who knows? So my biggest thing is, if you can get into therapies, if you can get into early intervention, I would really, really recommend doing that, especially when they're younger and their brain is moldable. That's my one takeaway.
I'd like to just go on to that as well. My closing thought is, wherever you are, arm yourself with knowledge and advocacy, because if you believe your child needs something, even if you don't know how to go about getting it, find the person who does, because that intervention, like she was saying, is so critical. It really does make a big difference. And what that big difference is could be different for each child. But it does make a difference, and your efforts aren't for naught. Like they're really not. It does make such a huge impact, and you will find roadblocks always. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but it is worth it. Like, the challenges change as your child gets older. Like, I don't want anyone to think like, oh, it's not going to be roses when they grow up, or like it's like things change. Like the phases are beautiful. It's just like when they're a baby and they, like, kids change and how it looks changes, at least in my perspective. But the one thing is, like, learn how to advocate for your child effectively. Like, we're all overworked. We're all really tired. Every day is something. Like, I've had the day with my kid already. Like, I had to pick him up. Anyway, learn how to advocate for your child, because if you don't know, like, what your child is entitled to in your area and how to elicit results for them, like, they're really missing out. And I don't want to give anybody like FOMO, but like, there is so much out there, even when there's so little resources. But these kinds of things have, I don't have the right words for it, but just don't put off learning how to advocate for your child. Like, there's a right way to do it. And so many people, because we constantly there's no time to take care of ourselves, right? Like, it's all day long. Like, you don't just have one thing going on with your kid. You have these two things, and it's really overwhelming. And many of us have multiple children and other things. Take the time to learn how to advocate for your kids, or find somebody, find free services, find another parent, someone who knows, local to you. Don't give up. Just don't give up. If you really think there's something that they need, find a way around it. Like, either be the river that carves the path or the flood that just smashes everything. Whichever approach, like, get results for your kid. Like, they need them. So.
And it's never too late too. Like, it's never
Absolutely.
too late. As much as I advocate for early intervention and, getting things as soon as you can, it's never too late to get those things or to advocate for your child.
Yeah. And it might not be the thing you originally asked for. You can ask for one thing, whether it's at school or therapy or wherever. What's the end result that you want? Like, what's the end goal you want? It doesn't have to be like, oh, this therapy, but like, what do you want that therapy to accomplish? There's so many creative ways to still get there. Like, just focus on the thing that you want and get to that point. Don't get discouraged. All right.
And I would just say it's a little bit down a different path, but there's hope in everyone's story. It's going to look different. My kiddo is very, very rigid in his routines and in how his days look. And sometimes I don't push him because I don't want the fallout. I don't want the meltdown and such. And then I have days where he's just flexible and he's like, okay, I'm ready to go try that new and different thing now. And I'm like, really? Yay, and as much as even a hug, my kiddo's not affectionate. And I raised all my kiddos affectionately, but he prefers to not. And sometimes now I just get the random hug and tear right up. And I'm like, okay, everything's good. We're having a good day. It's all going to be okay. We have long, hard days. And sometimes you just need that little silver lining, and, it comes around.
Well, I just want to thank each and every one of you for sharing a little bit of your story with our community. These peer perspective series are just a wonderful little piece of what Hope for HIE can give to the community. Little snapshots into different people's worlds on how they're navigating different topics. And I really do appreciate the time that you took and sharing stuff that's very personal, because I know it'll help someone out there in our community. So if anybody else would ever love to assist with the Peer Perspective series, please reach out. If there are any additional questions or resources that people are looking for, you are more than welcome to reach out to myself, Jennifer at HIE.org, and we can see what we can find for you. So with that said, I just want to thank you one more time and wish everybody a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.